9. German U-boat versus giant sea creature. A group of marine engineers were surveying an undersea power cable off the Scottish coast in 2016 when they discovered the remains of a World War I-era German submarine. The wreck was in surprisingly good shape for having sat for nearly a century on the seafloor, roughly 340 feet beneath the waves. Experts determined that it's most likely one of 2 U-boats that were sunk by British patrol ships in the Irish Sea in 1918, towards the end of the conflict. One of the submarines, known as UB-85, went down in April of that year, but thankfully its entire crew survived. According to legend, a sea monster prevented UB-85 from going underwater, making it visible to the nearby British patrol ship HMS Coreopsis. A story that circulated online in recent years claims that the captain spoke of an enormous horned beast that climbed up the side of the vessel and caused it to list. But there's no actual evidence to suggest that this tale is true, according to marine historian Ines McCartney, who was unable to trace its origins to any time before 2005. Neither the captain nor the crew members mentioned the presence of a sea monster during questioning by British intelligence, despite claims to the contrary. 8. Unidentified submerged object. In 2014, a mysterious vessel was spotted in the Baltic Sea roughly 30 miles off Stockholm. A photo of the object in question appeared to show the top of a submersible as it traveled along the water's surface. The sighting sparked the largest mobilization of the Swedish military since the Cold War. Authorities were quick to suspect that the vehicle was a Russian submarine, or that it perhaps belonged to someone else who had no business lurking in Swedish waters. However, more imaginative types theorized that it was a vessel of extraterrestrial origin, known as an unidentified submerged object or USO. Russia denied that it had anything to do with the strange object. Even if the country did have something to do with it, they would never admit it. But experts agreed that Russia was the most likely candidate for having a spy submarine off Sweden. Efforts to find the submersible were abandoned after a week of searching, so it's unlikely that anyone will ever be able to identify the vessel. 7. The Bloop. In 1997, researchers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, recorded a loud and unusual sound in the South Pacific while listening for underwater volcanic activity. The team captured the noise using a series of underwater microphones called hydrophones, which were spaced roughly 2,000 miles apart from one another. They described the noise, known as the bloop, as a mysterious rumble, unlike anything they'd ever heard before. Numerous theories began to circulate while scientists worked to pinpoint the source of the sound. The proposed explanations for its origins included unknown sea creatures, ship engines, underwater military exercises, giant squids, and whales. However, experts finally located the source of the bloop near Antarctica in 2005 during an effort to learn more about the sounds of seafloor earthquakes and volcanoes. And that's when they realized that the noise was being caused by an iceberg cracking and separating from a glacier, a phenomenon known as an icequake. Unfortunately, the bloop is predicted to become a more frequent occurrence, thanks to global warming. 6. The missing lighthouse keepers of Eilean Moor. Also known as the Seven Hunters, the Flannan Islands are a group of small landmasses in Scotland's Outer Hebrides archipelago. The largest among them, Eilean Moor, was once home to a lighthouse that was maintained by a 3-person crew. It was being manned by 3 keepers named Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, who all disappeared under mysterious circumstances in December of 1900. The men were waiting for a relief boat to arrive with supplies and a replacement crew when it became delayed due to a major storm. But when the boat finally did arrive, its crew was surprised that the lighthouse keepers weren't waiting out front to greet them like usual. They were even more shocked when a thorough search of the property turned up no trace of the keepers. Aside from the trio's absence, nothing appeared to be out of the ordinary, other than the fact that 2 of the men's outdoor gear was missing. At the time, it was illegal for a crew to leave a lighthouse completely unmanned. at least one person was required to be inside the structure at all times. Investigators concluded that Thomas Marshall and James Duncan were likely swept out to sea by huge waves after going outside in the storm, and that Donald MacArthur met the same fate after attempting to rescue his fellow crew members. But this theory has never been proven, leaving the true fates of the missing men a mystery. What do you think happened to the 3 missing lighthouse keepers? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's move on to number 5. 5. The Shag Harbor UFO Incident. Shag Harbor is a small fishing village that's situated along the south shore of Canada's Nova Scotia province. Not much typically happens there, but the town became famous in 1967 after several locals saw a large object descending toward the ocean late at night before coming to rest on the surface, roughly 800 to 1,000 feet from shore. Onlookers also heard what sounded like a bomb explosion, followed by a whoosh and a bang. Thinking an airplane might have crashed, they called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Responding officers were among the witnesses who saw a light bobbing along the water's surface as it moved further out to sea and eventually vanished. During a search effort, fishermen and other rescuers observed a thick yellow foam in the water. The mysterious substance was never identified, but investigators quickly ruled out the possibility of a plane crash after determining that no aircraft had gone missing. A search for debris undertaken by the Royal Canadian Navy failed to turn up any rubble or other evidence to help explain the bizarre sighting. The object was ultimately classified as a UFO, and the mysterious incident remains unexplained to this day. 4. The Mahogany Ship. 3/4 of the estimated 8,000 ships that dot Australia's shoreline have never been found. Stories of one phantom wreck, known as the Mahogany Ship, date back to 1836 when 3 seal hunters claimed to spot an old wooden wreck poking out from the sand along the Victoria coast. The ancient ship was reportedly seen between the towns of Port Fairy and Warrnambool along a notorious 80-mile stretch of coastline known as the Shipwreck Coast. Long-standing rumors claim that the Mahogany Ship is a 16th century Spanish or Portuguese caravel. And if this is true, it means that the vessel predates the arrival of explorer Captain James Cook, who's largely credited with being one of the first Europeans to thoroughly map Australia's shoreline. It would also mean that the Mahogany Ship arrived over a century before Dutch navigator Willem Jansz became the first European ever to see Australia's coast. Witnesses described the ship as being made from dark wood that was so hard it was capable of snapping knife blades. Its hull is reportedly flat-bottomed and wide, making it uncharacteristic of the vessels that typically sailed into the harbor. In addition to claims that it was a centuries-old caravel, theories have proposed the possibility that the ship is a Chinese chunk, a crude makeshift boat that was built by escaped prisoners during Australia's days as a penal colony. It's not clear, but this thing could be an extremely ancient vessel of indigenous origin. The wreck's never been confirmed to actually exist though, despite multiple reported sightings over the years. And there's no solid evidence to suggest that the Mahogany Ship is real, but this doesn't stop people from searching for it. In fact, if anything, it seems to make people even more determined to find it. According to Australian Geographic, local historian Jenny Fawcett has pointed to at least one reported sighting of the Mahogany Ship as the product of people overhearing and misinterpreting drunk sailors in a pub. It may seem insufficient to explain the mystery in its entirety, but skeptics would argue that it's more plausible than the widely unproven claims of the ship's existence. 3. The noises of the Mariana Trench. At nearly 7 miles beneath the water's surface, the Challenger Deep Trough is the deepest place on Earth. Located in the Mariana Trench, it's dark, frigid, and largely devoid of life, yet it's filled with a variety of noises. In 2014, scientists dropped a hydrophone into the Challenger Deep, where the pressure's over 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level. The sounds range from rumbles measuring as low as 30 Hz to metallic screeching at 8,000 Hz. Researchers called the series of noises the Western Pacific biotwang. Some experts believe that the sounds are created by an elusive species of baleen whale called the dwarf minke whale. The calls are unlike that of any other baleen whale, and there are a lot of unanswered questions surrounding the sounds. But these noises are heard year-round, suggesting that the calls aren't used for mating. So, experts admittedly need to learn more about the rarely sighted deep-dwelling species before they can make any definitive conclusions. The eerie collection of sounds may also be caused by a combination of natural and man-made activities, including underwater earthquakes, animal calls, ships, and submarines. According to scientists, the ocean is as much as 10 times noisier today than it was a half-century ago, due to marine vessels and underwater projects. For now, all scientists can do is speculate, while they work to uncover the vast mysteries of the world's largely unexplored oceans. 2. The Cascadia Earthquake. Just north of the infamous San Andreas Fault in California is another major fault line called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Measuring 700 miles long, it spans from northern Vancouver Island to Cape Mendocino, California. The fault represents a boundary between the North American tectonic plate, which contains the entire continent, and the 90,000 square mile Juan de Fuca plate. These two plates meet at the Cascadia Subduction Zone, where the Juan de Fuca plate is persistently trying to slip beneath the North American plate. The only problem is that the North American plate is wedged tightly into place, meaning that it's unlikely to budge from the movement of the Juan de Fuca plate. As a result, the edge of the North American plate is being pushed upward and eastward. A major earthquake event happens along the fault every 500 years or so, with the last one happening in 1700. There are no written records of the earthquake, but there's strong physical evidence to indicate that it actually happened. Scientists say that the rock of the North American plate will become stiffer over time, and as this happens, the risk of a massive earthquake of rarely seen proportions will increase dramatically. It's possible, or perhaps even likely, that the pent-up energy locked within the fault zone will trigger what's known as a mega thrust earthquake of a magnitude 9 or higher. Experts predict that the next earthquake to happen within the Cascadia Subduction Zone will cause the northwestern edge of North America to instantly drop as much as 6 feet, displacing a massive amount of ocean water. According to New Yorker journalist Catherine Schulz, this will trigger 2 tidal waves, one which will head toward Japan and another that will barrel into the American West Coast. Kenneth Murphy, who directs FEMA's Region X in the northwestern US, told Schulz that a 140,000 square mile region would be left unrecognizable after an event like this one. Populated cities like Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, and Portland would be devastated. FEMA predicts that around 13,000 people would die, while 27,000 would be left injured. Schulz also said that he hopes the science is wrong and that the earthquake won't happen during our lifetime or anytime soon. While there's a mysterious element to the Cascadia fault line and the type of activity it could bring in the future, experts seem pretty confident in their predictions that it's completely possible that a disaster will occur far sooner than anyone wants it to. But until or unless it happens, all anyone can do is wait and see. 1. The disappearance of the MS Munchin. Built in Germany during the early 1970s, the 857-foot-long MS Munchin was one of the largest, safest, and technologically advanced cargo vessels of her time. In December 1978, a little over 6 years after she was launched, the ship left the port of Bremerhaven in Germany for her usual route to Savannah, Georgia with a load of steel products. And while crossing through the North Atlantic, the Munchin encountered a brutal storm that had been raging for over a month. She was equipped to handle the rough seas, so the captain proceeded onward. But during the early morning hours on the 4th day of the voyage, the ship sent out several distress calls in Morse code. The messages were only partially transmitted, leaving their recipients tasked with interpreting them. One call mentioned 50 degrees starboard, indicating that the Munchin was listing heavily. Another message received by the US Navy mentioned 28 persons on board, with no clear indication of exactly what it meant. A widespread search effort recovered the Munchin's buoy, 4 empty life rafts, 2 life belts, and 3 life vests, but no trace of the ship itself or its crew were ever found. Investigators struggled to come up with a logical answer for why a ship that was considered practically unsinkable had sunk. At the time, the concept of rogue waves existed, but most mainstream experts dismissed the possibility that the waves themselves were real. Even today, scientists don't fully understand rogue waves, but they've acknowledged that the phenomenon exists. As a result, it was eventually determined that the unusually harsh conditions most likely caused a rogue wave measuring between 80 and 100 feet tall to crash down on the Munchin, resulting in devastating damage that practically no ship would have survived.
Number 6. The Presidential Bunker. In the midst of the Black Lives Matter protests that erupted in the wake of George Floyd's tragic death, something interesting was revealed about an underground world beneath the White House. According to reports by BusinessInsider.com, on May 31st, then-President Donald Trump, along with First Lady Melania Trump and their son Barron, found themselves sheltered in an underground bunker known as the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, or PEOC. And while President Trump referred to his presence there as an inspection, multiple sources hinted that it was a precautionary move as the protests intensified in Washington, D.C. The PEOC, hidden beneath the White House's East Wing, has a fascinating history dating back to the early 1940s during World War II. At that time, President Franklin D. Roosevelt deemed it an absolute necessity due to concerns about potential German rocket attacks on the White House. Then, President Harry Truman expanded and reinforced the bunker, transforming it into the bomb shelter it is today. Described by former First Lady Laura Bush as a command center equipped with phones, televisions, and communications facilities, the PEOC played a pivotal role during emergencies. One of its most renowned uses was during the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks in 2001, when Laura Bush and senior White House staff sought refuge there. Even though President George W. Bush was in Florida at the time, Secret Service protocol mandated the immediate evacuation of family members to the bunker. Photos from the U.S. National Archives reveal other prominent figures as well, including Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of State Colin Powell, and National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, also taking shelter in the bunker. The 9/11 attacks prompted calls for a more advanced and secure bunker. Initially, national security personnel had planned to evacuate the White House staff and the presidential family to a remote location in the event of a nuclear attack. However, the realities of escaping Washington while under attack became clear, as congested roads and risky helicopter escapes presented significant challenges. The idea for a new bunker under the White House's North Lawn took shape during the Obama administration in 2010. But of course, the project was shrouded in secrecy, with the General Services Administration concealing its true purpose by claiming it was replacing existing White House infrastructure. Subcontractors were even ordered to remain silent about the construction. The depth of this bunker remains a mystery, but experts suggest that it must be at least 1,000 feet underground to withstand the impact of the most powerful nuclear warheads in the U.S. arsenal. However, there are reports that the newest section of the bunker, designed as both a command center and living quarters, extends 5 stories below ground. It's also said to be complete with ample food and a self-contained air supply, and it's sealed off to prevent radiation infiltration during a nuclear attack. Subterranean tunnels provide an escape route for the president, their families, and staff, allowing them to evacuate the White House entirely if necessary. The secret underground area beneath the White House remains a mysterious and fascinating topic, giving us a peek into the secretive parts of how the president stays safe and ready for emergencies. Number 5. The Ghosts of the White House. According to WhiteHouseHistory.org, President Abraham Lincoln's wife held seances in the White House to communicate with her deceased son, Willie. In the face of death, individuals seek various means of coping with loss, often turning to organized religion or spirituality for solace. A significant transformation in mourning practices occurred during the 19th century, particularly with the Lincoln family, in the backdrop of the American Civil War and the rise of spiritualism. The American Civil War, which was waged from 1861 to 1865 over slavery, inflicted unprecedented death tolls, with roughly 750,000 American casualties. This far exceeded the combined losses of previous American wars, and the magnitude of this loss profoundly influenced how Americans grappled with death and mourning. Understanding the significance of a loved one's life and death is crucial for the grieving process. However, during the Civil War, unreliable or unavailable information about deaths hindered mourning. Survivors struggled to comprehend their losses, as noted by historian Drew Gilpin Faust. Spiritualism, centered on the belief that the deceased can communicate with the living, gained prominence in the mid-19th century, offering closure to grieving survivors. By 1897, over 8 million people in the United States and Europe embraced spiritualism, primarily from the middle and upper classes. Seances, where mediums claimed to communicate with the dead, became commonplace, providing solace in connection with departed relatives. Even Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of President Abraham Lincoln, turned to spiritualism following her son Willie's death in 1862. She even hosted seances in the White House's Red Room, with President Lincoln attending some of them. These seances provided comfort, and Mary Todd Lincoln believed her son visited her in spirit during these sessions. The White House itself then became associated with spiritualism, as tales of Lincoln family ghosts began to circulate. Reports from people claiming to see the spirit of Abraham Lincoln in rooms like the Lincoln Bedroom and the Yellow Oval Room were numerous. And White House employee Jeremiah Jerry Smith contributed to these legends by recounting ghostly stories to reporters. In 1870, Mary Todd Lincoln secretly visited a self-proclaimed spirit photographer named William H. Mumler, resulting in the photograph of her with her late husband. This image and others depicting Lincoln as a spirit were widespread in the years following his assassination. These stories provided support to a grieving nation, symbolizing the idea that departed loved ones, like the father of the nation, continued to watch over their families from beyond. They also demonstrated that those who perished in the war could find solace despite their untimely deaths. While these White House ghost stories originated in the 19th century when spiritualism was at its peak, they've since faded in the 21st century as contemporary perceptions of death and mourning differed significantly. Nonetheless, during the Civil War, spiritualism served as a vital coping mechanism in a time when death was omnipresent, offering comfort to a nation that was scarred by loss. Number 4. Slavery in Washington, D.C. In a memorable speech at the 2016 Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, First Lady Michelle Obama shared an emotional reflection on her family's experience in the United States. She emphasized the significant progress that had been made, while also addressing then-Republican nominee Donald Trump's promise to make America great again. Mrs. Obama's words left a lasting impression as she stated, "I wake up every morning in a house that was built by slaves." Her statement highlighted the historical context of the White House, making it a symbol of both the nation's accomplishments and its complex history. The White House, often referred to as the People's House, traces its origins to 1792 when construction began. And surprisingly, the labor force that contributed to its construction included enslaved individuals. While the Capitol's location was chosen in areas ceded by slave states Virginia and Maryland, laborers were initially intended to be imported from Europe. However, the recruitment efforts fell short, leading to the inclusion of African Americans, both enslaved and free, as the primary workforce responsible for building the White House. But that's not all. They also built the United States Capitol and other early government structures. Colin Williamson, a stonemason, even trained enslaved workers on site at the government's quarry in Virginia to supply the necessary raw materials for construction. Immigrants from various European nations, along with local white laborers and artisans from Maryland and Virginia, also participated in the construction efforts. This collaboration of diverse labor sources reflects the complex mosaic of America's history. Throughout its existence, the White House has undergone numerous renovations and changes. It endured significant damage during the War of 1812, underwent an expansion in 1902, and saw extensive reconstruction in the early 1950s. But it's important to note that these alterations occurred after the Civil War and the abolition of slavery in the U.S. Michelle Obama's speech reminds us that the White House, the residence of the country's first African-American presidential family during her husband Barack Obama's presidency, has deep historical roots that include the contribution of enslaved individuals. Her words encourage us to acknowledge the multifaceted history of the United States, where progress and challenges have intersected to shape the nation we know today. Were you aware that the White House was built by slaves? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's move on to number 3, the First Hive. Did you know that the White House produces its own honey? In 2016, Charlie Brantz, a seasoned carpenter and bee enthusiast, shared his unique journey as the official White House beekeeper. This unlikely combination of professions took him to the heart of the nation's capital, where he managed beehives on the south lawn of the White House, a place visited by thousands of people every year. Charlie's beekeeping adventure at the White House began in 2009, when he was asked to bring a beehive to the site as part of a green initiative. Initially, he didn't feel much pressure, but as attention to the project grew, so did his nerves. Managing a beehive in a location frequented by helicopters, presidential activities, and even a playful Portuguese water dog presented its challenges. However, Charlie's meticulous nature and dedication shone through. He coordinated with various agencies, from the National Park Service to the Secret Service, to ensure the success of the White House beehives. This venture required precision and error-free beekeeping, which was something he had to learn on the job. Over the years, Charlie became a vital figure in the beekeeping community, fostering a deeper understanding of bees and their importance. He emphasized the necessity of responsible beekeeping, including testing and treating for pests like mites. His efforts yielded impressive results, while the White House hive producing up to 200 pounds of honey annually, which was shared with wounded veterans, school children, and even dignitaries like the Pope. Charlie's journey showcased the significance of bees and beekeeping in urban areas, where the well-being of both bees and neighbors must be considered. And despite his retirement from full-time work, he continued to mentor beekeepers, stressing the importance of continuous learning and collaboration within the beekeeping community. As a symbol of the White House's commitment to sustainability and education, the beekeeping program thrived. It played a crucial role in conveying the message about the origin of food and the importance of healthy eating. Even though administrations changed, the kitchen garden, including the beehives, remained a part of the White House landscape. Charlie's innovative solutions, like a device for closing hive entrances and a ventilation box for hive maintenance, made his role as the White House beekeeper even more efficient. Throughout his time on the South Lawn, Charlie's dedication and expertise inspired beekeepers worldwide, showing that with meticulous care and a commitment to learning, bees could thrive even in the heart of the nation's capital. And today, his legacy continues to be a shining example of responsible beekeeping and the importance of bees in our environment. Number 2, FDRs Pool. The White House briefing room, where the press secretary addresses a swarm of reporters, holds an iconic status in American politics. Yet, what many might find surprising is that beneath the bustling room lies a hidden secret: a boarded-up swimming pool. This 50-foot-long pool, dating back to the 1930s, was originally constructed for President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who used it for daily swims as a form of exercise. The pool was a technological marvel of its time, featuring sterilization systems, underwater lighting, and the latest gadgets. Presidents Truman and Kennedy also made use of this aquatic amenity during their respective terms. However, in 1970, President Nixon, a bowling enthusiast, decided to drain the pool to create modern press offices. Prior to this renovation, there was no designated space for press briefings, and interviews were conducted in the hallways and working offices of the White House. Despite the pool being void of water, it remains hidden beneath the briefing room's floorboards. For years, it was accessible through a trapdoor near the podium, adding an element of intrigue to the location. A more convenient and discreet staircase was installed in 2006, maintaining the pool's covert presence. Over time, this former aquatic retreat has served various purposes, housing communication equipment for the press room above. But today it's filled with modern computer servers, and yet it still carries the faint scent of chlorine, preserving a piece of its fascinating history. In the heart of the White House, the press briefing room conceals a remarkable relic of the past. A pool that once hosted presidents and their daily swims, now silently supporting the flow of information in the digital age. And at number 1, Harry S. Truman Bowling Alley. Nestled within the White House's storied halls is a bit of a surprise: the Harry S. Truman Bowling Alley. Surprisingly, this unassuming bowling alley tucked away at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue sees an astonishing number of visitors. In January of 2023 alone, 1,100 people had the opportunity to bowl there, as indicated by the latest White House visitor log. And in December, there were even more visitors, with an impressive 1,425 guests trying their hand at the presidential game. That averages out to a whopping 45 people per day enjoying some rounds of bowling. While the number of bowling enthusiasts visiting this secret spot constitutes only a fraction of the White House's total foot traffic, it's clear that the Biden administration has a soft spot for this sport. For context, during the entire year of 2014, just 759 visitors graced the bowling alley, according to archived logs from the Obama administration. The surge in popularity of the bowling alley can be attributed largely to pent-up demand caused by COVID-19 restrictions. Staffers for the first 18 months of the administration lacked the opportunity to host traditional White House events or receptions. However, with restrictions easing, they're eager to showcase their workplace and entertain friends and family. Securing a slot at the bowling alley is no easy feat, with reservations opening up a month in advance. Staffers have the liberty to utilize the space for both professional and personal events, ranging from team-building activities to hosting birthday parties for their kids or simply hanging out with friends. One White House employee explained how staffers cherish the chance to share this unique piece of the White House with their loved ones. And with slots filling up rapidly, it adds to the excitement when someone secures a booking. Moreover, the Biden White House has used the bowling alley for soft diplomacy, frequently inviting lawmakers for bowling sessions. At least 16 House members and 1 senator have participated this year, along with around 450 Hill staffers. The administration has also extended invites to outside groups visiting the White House for official events, considering the lanes a means to strengthen relationships with key stakeholders. Occasionally, celebrities make an appearance as well, with actors Sophia Bush and Bradley Whitford spotted at the bowling alley during the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend. The space, however, isn't particularly extravagant. It's located in a basement with low ceilings, fluorescent lightings, and just 2 lanes dating back to the 1940s that could use an update. Despite its limitations, though, it's the exclusivity that makes it a hot ticket. As one former Biden administration official put it, "It's cool because it's exclusive, but the bowling alley really isn't modern."
The Battle of Gargamella 331 BC. Rapid military deployment, or the capability to move troops and resources quickly and efficiently, is a hallmark of successful military operations. Whether through the mastery of cavalry movements in ancient times or the utilization of modern transport and logistics, the swiftness with which an army can be mobilized can tip the scales of victory. Rapid deployment allows armies to respond to emerging threats, exploit enemy weaknesses, or launch preemptive strikes, all of which can alter the course of history. The element of surprise, which is closely intertwined with rapid deployment, is equally pivotal. Surprise attacks disrupt an opponent's plans, sow confusion, and create psychological shock. And a well-executed surprise can render an enemy unprepared and disorganized, placing them at a severe disadvantage. Throughout history, the audacious and unexpected maneuvers of military leaders have often been the key to achieving victory against numerically superior forces. Consider Alexander the Great's swift and decisive flanking maneuver at the Battle of Gargamella, or Hannibal's brilliant encirclement of the Romans at Cannae. These historic examples underscore how surprise tactics, coupled with rapid deployment, can lead to stunning victories. In modern warfare, the principles remain relevant. The lightning-fast blitzkrieg tactics employed by the German military during World War II demonstrated the enduring importance of rapid movement and the shock of the unexpected. Even in recent conflicts such as the Falklands War in 1981, the advantages of rapid military deployment and surprise tactics are undeniable. The Battle of Gargamella, which was fought in 331 BC, stands as one of the most iconic battles in ancient history, primarily due to Alexander the Great's exceptional military leadership and ingenious flanking maneuver. This pivotal battle took place near the village of Gargamella, which is located in modern-day Iraq, between Alexander's Macedonian army and the Persian forces led by King Darius III. Alexander, known for his audacious tactics and brilliant maneuvering, confronted a vastly larger Persian army. Darius III, the Persian king, deployed his forces on a wide and open plain, believing that the vast numerical advantage of his army would overwhelm the Macedonians. However, Alexander recognized that this terrain offered him the opportunity to exploit the weaknesses of Darius's massive army. Alexander executed a masterful and rapid deployment of his troops. He positioned his elite companion cavalry on the right flank, while the phalanx formation formed the center of his forces. The left wing comprised cavalry and infantry, and as the battle commenced, Alexander personally led the charge on the right, directing his companion cavalry to wheel around and strike at the exposed flank of the Persian line. This audacious flanking maneuver was executed with incredible speed, catching the Persians off guard and causing chaos in their ranks. Darius III was unable to respond effectively to the swift and coordinated attack. The Persian center became entangled with the Macedonian phalanx, while Alexander's cavalry broke through on the right, directly targeting Darius. The result was a decisive victory for Alexander's forces. Darius III fled the battlefield in fear, leaving his army in disarray. The Battle of Gargamella shattered the myth of Persian invincibility and marked a turning point in the struggle between the Greek and Persian worlds. Alexander's rapid deployment, combined with his impressive flanking maneuver, showcased his military genius and highlighted the enduring importance of maneuver warfare and the element of surprise in battle. We'll take a look at pivotal battles and campaigns from different eras of history, showcasing the critical role that rapid military deployment has played in shaping the fates of nations and empires. But before we continue, if you're joining us for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button to unlock a treasure trove of incredible videos. And don't keep your thoughts to yourself, drop a comment below and tell us what you'd like us to cover next. The Battle of Cana, 216 BC. The Battle of Cana, which was fought in 216 BC during the Second Punic War, stands as one of the most strategically brilliant and tactically devastating battles in ancient history, immortalizing the genius of the Carthaginian general Hannibal. The battle was a masterpiece of military maneuvering, with Hannibal's tactics and rapid deployment leading to a catastrophic defeat for the Roman Republic. At Cana, Hannibal's forces, mainly composed of Carthaginians and their allied tribes, faced a significantly larger Roman army led by consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro. Hannibal's strategy revolved around luring the Romans into a seemingly vulnerable position. The key to Hannibal's success was his ability to create a concave formation, with his infantry in a crescent shape facing the Romans. He deployed his less reliable infantry at the center, but had his most elite troops, including the African and Iberian infantry, forming the edges of the crescent. And his cavalry, notably Numidian and Gallic horsemen, were positioned on the wings. As the battle unfolded, Hannibal employed a seemingly reckless strategy of drawing the Romans deeper into his formation, allowing the center to give ground. This created an encirclement effect, with the Carthaginian cavalry on the flanks closing in on the German rear. The Romans then found themselves trapped within Hannibal's tightening grip. The result was a bloodbath. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed or captured. It's estimated that as many as 50,000 Roman soldiers perished at Cana, making it one of the deadliest battles in history. The defeat was a severe blow to the Roman Republic, but it also demonstrated Hannibal's tactical brilliance and the devastating power of well-executed rapid encirclement tactics. The Battle of Cana remains a timeless example of military strategy and the significance of maneuver warfare in achieving victory on the battlefield. The Battle of Austerlitz, 1805. The Battle of Austerlitz was fought on December 2nd, 1805, and it stands as one of Napoleon Bonaparte's most brilliant military triumphs, as well as a masterpiece of maneuver warfare. This pivotal battle during the War of the Third Coalition showcased Napoleon's strategic genius and his ability to rapidly deploy and execute decisive surprise attacks. Following the French occupation of Vienna on November 13, 1805, Napoleon relentlessly pursued the retreating Russian and Austrian allied armies into Moravia. At this juncture, the arrival of Russian Emperor Alexander I altered the command dynamics within the Allied forces, limiting the authority of their general Kutuzov. Recognizing the opportunity, Napoleon lured the Allies to confront him west of Austerlitz. And there he set a trap by vacating the Pratzen Plateau, strategically enticing the Allies to occupy it. The pivotal moment arrived when the Allies initiated their main offensive. By deploying 40,000 troops, they sought to sever the French right flank's connection to Vienna. Marshal Louis Davout, commanding a corps of 10,500 soldiers, diligently withstood this onslaught, and simultaneously, the Allied secondary attack on Napoleon's northern flank was met with staunch resistance. Then, Napoleon sprung the trap by ordering Marshal Nicholas Soult to lead 20,000 infantrymen up the Pratzen Plateau slopes. This maneuver effectively shattered the weaker Allied center, allowing Soult's forces to capture and secure the plateau. The Battle of Austerlitz ultimately culminated in a resounding victory for Napoleon. This triumph was an enduring testament to Napoleon's unmatched skills in strategic maneuvering and troop deployment. The Battle of Tannenberg, 1914. The Battle of Tannenberg, a pivotal engagement during World War I, unfolded in August 1914. Under the joint command of General Paul von Hindenburg and General Erich Ludendorff, German forces executed a brilliant and decisive offensive against the Russian Second Army in East Prussia. At the outbreak of World War I, the Russian Second Army, which was commanded by General Alexander Samsonov, ventured into East Prussia with the aim of diverting German forces from the Western Front. The Russians encountered initial success, but soon faced challenges in communication and coordination due to their vast deployment. Recognizing an opportunity, the German High Command dispatched Generals Hindenburg and Ludendorff to the Eastern Front. Their strategic vision was to quickly and effectively counter the Russian threat. The Germans meticulously planned their attack, leveraging the extensive railway network in the region to rapidly transport troops and supplies. Meanwhile, they exploited a gap between the Russian First and Second Armies. The battle began on August 26, 1914, with the Germans launching a flanking maneuver against the Russian Second Army. German forces enveloped the Russians, creating a pocket around them. Samsonov's army was then effectively encircled, with their lines of retreat severed. Over the course of several days, the Russians suffered devastating losses, and their Second Army eventually disintegrated. General Samsonov, unable to bear the weight of the defeat, then took his own life. The Battle of Tannenberg was a resounding victory for the Germans. It showcased the effectiveness of their rapid deployment, coordination, and strategic intelligence. The battle was a turning point in the Eastern Front, as it temporarily halted Russian advances into East Prussia and bolstered German morale. General Hindenburg, in particular, emerged as a national hero. The Fall of France, 1940. The Blitzkrieg tactics employed by the German military during World War II were a revolutionary form of warfare characterized by rapid and coordinated movements, combined arms strategies, and the element of surprise. And these tactics reached their peak during the invasion of France in 1940, reshaping the nature of modern warfare. In May 1940, as German forces confronted the heavily fortified Maginot Line in northeastern France, they executed a daring maneuver by rapidly advancing through the seemingly impassable Ardennes forest, a region thought to be a natural barrier to large-scale military movements. This bold move, which took the Allies by surprise, was a testament to the flexibility and audacity of Blitzkrieg warfare. The German forces, led by General Heinz Guderian, utilized fast-moving armored units, primarily tanks, and mechanized infantry, supported by air cover from the Luftwaffe. This combination of speed, firepower, and coordination allowed them to bypass the heavily defended Maginot Line and push deep into French territory. In turn, this drove a wedge between the British and French armies. The Blitzkrieg had effectively cut off the Allied troops from their supply lines and escape routes. And while the subsequent Dunkirk evacuation was a logistical and moral success for the Allies, the German Blitzkrieg tactics had proven to be devastatingly effective, as demonstrated by the fall of France in just a matter of weeks. The Battle of Dien Bienfu, 1954. The Battle of Dien Bienfu, a defining moment in the First Indochina War, unfolded from March to May 1954. Vietnamese Communist forces, under the astute leadership of General Vo Nguyen Giap, executed a meticulously planned and brilliantly executed campaign against the French stronghold of Dien Bien Phu. In a bold move, the French established a fortified outpost in the remote valley of Dien Bien Phu, believing that it would disrupt Viet Minh's supply routes and serve as a strategically advantageous base. Unbeknownst to them, though, General Giap had devised a plan to encircle and besiege this outpost. General Giap's tactics relied heavily on rapid deployment and the element of surprise. His forces skillfully maneuvered through the challenging terrain of the remote region, using guerrilla tactics to remain hidden from the French. They employed a vast network of trenches, tunnels, and fortifications to prepare for the assault. The siege began on March 13, 1954, with the Vietnamese forces gradually closing in on the French stronghold. General Giap's troops launched relentless attacks, gradually weakening the French position. The French, unable to receive adequate reinforcements and supplies due to the Viet Minh's control of the surrounding hills and roads, found themselves isolated and besieged. And despite stubborn French resistance, the situation soon became unreasonable. On May 7, 1954, the French garrison at Dien Bien Phu surrendered, marking a significant turning point in the First Indochina War. This victory for the Viet Minh led to the Geneva Accords later that year, which partitioned Vietnam and paved the way for its eventual reunification. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu exemplified the effectiveness of rapid deployment, surprise tactics, and guerrilla warfare in the face of a technologically superior enemy. General Giap's strategic brilliance and the dedication of his forces underscored the determination of the Vietnamese people in their struggle for independence. The Forklands War, 1982. The Forklands War in 1982 fought between Argentina and the United Kingdom over the disputed Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands, featured remarkable displays of rapid mobilization and deployment by both sides. The conflict began when Argentine forces swiftly occupied the Falkland Islands on April 2, 1982. Argentina's rapid deployment caught the British government off guard, leading to a swift and decisive response. The British government quickly assembled a task force comprising naval vessels, troops, and equipment to retake the islands. One of the most notable examples of rapid mobilization was the British Royal Navy's effort to assemble a powerful naval task force in a matter of weeks. This task force, including the aircraft carriers HMS Hermes and HMS Invincible, along with numerous support vessels, transported British troops and equipment to the South Atlantic. The Royal Marines and the British Army units were rapidly deployed to the Falklands, demonstrating remarkable logistical and strategic planning. The ability to transport troops and supplies over thousands of miles of ocean to a remote and hostile environment was a testament to the UK's military capabilities. On the Argentine side, rapid mobilization was also evident as they fortified their position on the Falklands and South Georgia. They quickly established airfields, deployed troops, and positioned naval assets in the region. Ultimately, though, the conflict resulted in the successful British recapture of the Falklands, demonstrating the importance of rapid mobilization and deployment in modern warfare. The Falklands War showcased the challenges and complexities of conducting military operations in distant and hostile environments, emphasizing the need for effective logistics, intelligence, and strategic planning. Rapid deployment enables armies to seize strategic advantages, respond to threats swiftly, and maintain the initiative on the battlefield. From Alexander the Great's lightning-fast cavalry to modern airlift capabilities, the ability to move troops quickly has been and continues to be a hallmark of successful military campaigns. Efficient logistics underpin the sustainability of military operations. Supplies, equipment, and reinforcements are the lifeblood of any army, and well-organized logistics ensure that these vital elements reach the front lines in a timely manner. From ancient empires like Rome to modern multinational coalitions, logistical prowess has often been the key to victory. The element of surprise, whether achieved through ingenious tactics, unexpected maneuvers, or covert operations, frequently tips the balance in favor of the unanticipated attacker. Battles like the Battle of Cana in 216 BC demonstrated how surprise can lead to catastrophic defeats or triumphant victories. In an age of technological innovation, these timeless principles highlight that despite advances in weaponry and communication, the fundamentals of military success remain anchored in the ability to move swiftly, sustain operations, and outthink the adversary. Which of these battles intrigued you the most? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.